Hi, this is David Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And whether you're watching with our friends over at Turning Time, or wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts, as always, thank you for taking out time from your day to spend some of it with me. So I'm going to do something a little out of order because I usually do all my questions and answers in the question and answer segment at the end of the show. But the first question that I happen to notice today is really something I want to start the podcast with. Anonymous asks, when the Rav was reminiscing about his trip to America, you spoke how you're telling us all of this because you miss us and you want to connect. However, the Rav is talking to a camera. How can you feel such a connection to something that you don't actually see and to people that you don't actually know? So this is such a good question. And I have to give it a little bit of a hesber, and that's why I'm saying this at the beginning when I say thank you for taking out time and watching this podcast. There's an art form to talking when you don't see anybody, right? I've told this story in the past. Yeah, I have a problem because there are certain people who listen to everything that I say. They're clearly not my children. And so, they remember everything that I ever said. I'm sure I told this story, but when I was in Israel, if you had a really good friend, you'd make him a tape. And it's very hard because you're sitting there talking to somebody and you don't see them. And you just have to try to keep up a monologue. It's not really a dialogue, it's a monologue. Now, sometimes you do this to somebody who you're with. That's a dialogue, but it's really a monologue because you're the only one talking. I think I mentioned this, that I'm by nature a shy person. I was once painfully shy when I first got my the job of being an NCSY director in Los Angeles. I actually stood on the corner of Fairfax and Beverly Boulevard and practiced saying hello to people, because it was so hard for me to talk to anybody. And, we managed. So I would talk to the kids at every meeting, but this one girl just would look at me, not say a word. So I kept up this monologue, which of course is a dialogue because there's somebody else there. And it was very painful. It was painful every week. After a few months, she came over and just started talking to me. And I was like, what happened? She goes, it takes me a long time to warm up. So I understand that. I don't know if you've noticed this. Not always, but sometimes when people come onto the program, it's hard for them to talk. I've heard this from a lot of guests that I've had on the show where they said, I want to do it again. Because I didn't realize when I was doing it, it's hard to just talk to a camera. And it is. It is. Now, for me, it's a lot easier. I have years of experience of talking to people who don't listen to me. So it's not so hard. But, it is definitely difficult. It's a challenge. When I speak in an audience, I feel like I'm speaking to each person individually. That's the way I try to do it. Now, if I never left my little room and I only had a little camera that I was talking to, it probably would be more difficult. But I'm constantly getting emails and phone calls and meeting people who say to me, I watch the show, I listen to the show, I really get a tremendous amount of chizuk. And that means a lot to me. It really does. So when I'm speaking to the camera, I'm not speaking to a camera, I'm speaking to everybody that I've met. And through the koach hadimyan, was imagination, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us, I imagine all the other people who are listening. And every now and then I'll get a picture, of somebody whose little kid is sitting there eating his cereal and watching the podcast, or they say, as we clean up after Shabbos, we're watching the podcast, or things like this. I've seen a lot of the people, and I have enough imagination to imagine everybody else. And I said this at the beginning, thank you for taking out time, because there is so many things that you can watch, that you can listen to, that you can do with your time, and that people take out time. Thousands and thousands of people take out time to listen to what I have to say. Yeah, I feel a tremendous hakaras hatov and connection and obligation to those people. I know it seems like it's pretty easy. It's not always easy to do this. I also have things that I have to do, All the people who send me emails that I've never answered can testify that I've got things that I have to do. I've got a lot of projects that I'm working on, at least in theory. Most of the time I sit and worry about the fact that I'm not doing any of the stuff I'm supposed to be doing. But, but I do it because I feel an obligation. And it always happens, basically back during Corona time, when I'd miss an episode and I'd get emails, are you okay? Are you still alive? We missed the podcast. So yeah, I'm talking to all of the people I've seen and all of the people that I imagine are sitting and listening to this podcast. That's how I make that connection. So that was the first of the questions. We'll come back to the rest of them later, but I just wanted to answer that one. As I say again, thank you for taking out time. And this episode is sponsored anonymously as a schus that today's learning be a bracha for a smooth and complete refuah shlema for Miriam Chaya Bas Chanita. And as I say that, since I've already mentioned that I feel that, everybody who listens to this podcast is something that connects us. If you listen to me, and like I say, a lot of people listen to all of these podcasts and all my shiurim, there's something seriously wrong with you. So that links us together through whatever this mental illness is. That makes somebody a Rabbi Orlofsky show crazy, of which I'm only one. I am one among many. So I'm going to ask everyone, if I can be so bold, as to take a minute and say a kapitel Tehillim, and you can put this on pause. And again, the name is Miriam Chaya Bas Chanita, with love from Ima and Aunt Bela. Do not underestimate the power of us to be able to do great things. And there's no reason that she shouldn't have refuah shlema in the schus of your listening today. And in Mirza Hashem, that little tefillah that you'll say, that power. With love from Ima and Aunt Bela, thank you, Rabbi Orlofsky, for enriching our lives each and every week. And again, thank you for the opportunity. Okay, that's our introduction, or as we say in Hebrew, introduxia. Yeah. If you don't know a Hebrew word, just stick an itzia at the end. You're probably right. I've tried this. I can't think of the Hebrew word. I just say the English word, Motivatia. Yeah, that's a word. Yeah. What's the point? Yeah, poyent. That's right. I don't know. It's a great language. Anyway, so I wanted to talk about a Pesach theme, and as I often do when I'm getting ready to film, I say to my wife, what should I talk about? More often than not, she gives me a very good idea. And she gave me an idea today that I would like to expand upon. We spend a lot of time talking about the Seder. And that's what you notice throughout all of Pesach. People are either saying leftover vortlach from the Pesach Seder or Sfiras HaOmer. That's just how it goes. So why don't you talk about some of the other aspects of Pesach? There must be some of the tefillas that deserve a little bit more attention. I said, great. So immediately I knew what I wanted to talk about. I don't know what's going on wherever you're watching, around the world. Those who watch in Australia and South Africa and in South America, you may not appreciate this, since the world is upside down and you're probably just hanging from your legs, because that's the way the world works. The people in the bottom are just hanging upside down. I've seen pictures. Anyway, so, but if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, it's starting to become a springtime. I mentioned this knowing there were certain places in America that I think a week ago had a snowstorm. So, okay, I remember I was in New York on Pesach. There was a freak snowstorm on Pesach. Okay. But here in Eretz Yisrael, which is the way the Torah is meant to be lived, the Eretz Yisrael is the expression of everything that's in the Torah. There's a whole halachic issue of what do you do when you say Kriya Shema and Zman Tefillah and these things. if you're in one of those places where it's always day or it's always night. So this was an issue in Europe for the whaling boats that were near the Arctic Ocean. They had only like a minute was Zman Kriyashma. That was it. You had 1 minute because the whole day was so compressed. My brother-in-law, when he was Rav in Calgary, Dovid Lichman, he had to do a bris somewhere all the way up north in the Northwest Territory, and it was in the summertime, and there was no night. The sun didn't set. So he was there for Shabbos. It was either a Shabbos bris or a Friday bris. So what do? He says you go all the way down to the first Jewish community and you start Shabbos and finish Shabbos when they do. That's an amazing thing. Yeah. I don't want to mention his name anymore, but there was a music star in the secular world that for a while was Orthodox. And he never did shows on Friday night. Except he did a show in Alaska in the summertime. He was able to do it. It wasn't a problem. But be that as it may, yeah, the Eretz Yisrael experience is something so special. It's springtime. I say springtime. It's sort of like we went from winter to summer with like about an hour in between. That was spring. But what's pshat? Spring, yeah. Do you ever hear the autumn of my year, or the winter of our discontent? The year is a mashal for a person's life. Springtime is birth. Summer, you reach your fruition. That's when everything is full. Autumn, things start to die. When you see the leaves changing colors, it's just because the chlorophyll isn't filling them anymore. They're dying, so they don't look green. They're not really changing colors. That's their real colors. And by winter, everything looks dead. The world looks dead. The trees are bare. The ground is cold and frozen. There's nothing there. And then comes the springtime, and everything comes back to life. That tree that looked like it was dead begins to grow leaves, grow fruit, begins to get larger. Flowers start to grow. Everything seems to come back. It's like the world is coming back to life. This is not by chance. We've mentioned the Sefer Chinuch in the past when it says, Sukkot is called Chag Asif, the time of gathering in all of the produce, right? The wheat is all put out into the fields in the summertime to dry out, and before the rainy season, you bring it in. All of the figs are slit so that they dry up, and now they're all brought inside. Barrels of wine, barrels of oil, everything, comes in. Now, a person takes a look, and he sees all of the bounty that he has, and he says, wow, this is great. A person is happy when he sees all of his bounty because it's the quicker picker-upper. Sorry about that. Anyway, but he's seeing everything that's coming together. You show a hakaras hatov to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. When you look at all of the bounty that he's given, you would never rebel. That would be mutiny on the bounty. But anyway, yeah, cultural references. Anyway, so when you you put everything in, so a person's happy. So Pashtus, Sukkot is Zman Simchaseinu. We're very happy. Why? Because we look at our bounty, we look at all of the things that we have, that makes us happy. A full larder, storehouses, makes everybody happy. He says if Sefer Chinuch, no. It's because Sukkot is Zman Simchaseinu, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu set up the world that the time of bringing everything in would be Sukkot, to help you be happy. It's not that we're happy because we brought everything in. Hashem set up the world that we should bring it in then. So the fact that Pesach is Chodesh HaAviv, it's not just that we went out in the springtime, and it's not only like they said it's a good time to come because it's not too hot and it's not too cold, and the rain has stopped, so it's not going to be muddy. That's not the main point. The main point is that springtime is creation. And that's what happens. Springtime represents birth. Summer represents your fulfillment, your strength. The autumn is where everything starts to close down. That's where I am. And then the winter is when you're old and dying, when life is ending. And just like the snow covers the earth, the white hair covers you. And you're cold and you're old. What happens when I'm 70? Must come a time, 70. When you're old and it's cold, and who cares if you live or you die? I played Fagin in the camp production of Oliver. Thank you very much. Anyway, he was a head of a gang of pickpockets. He would bring in all these little children and befriend them and send them out to do crime. So you understand why I was cast in this role. Typecasting, if you will. Anyway, so and he's a Jewish character in Charles Dickens, because he was an anti-Semite, and that's why when Menachem Begin was elected prime minister, so Time magazine said Menachem Begin, and wrote his name rhymes with Fagin. There are other words that rhyme with Begin, but it was an obvious anti-Semitic swipe. But anyhow, I remember Dry Bones. There used to be a cartoon in Israel called Dry Bones. And he says, oh, did you see what Time magazine wrote? Time, which rhymes with crime and slime. Anyway, but so the winter is when everything starts to close down. It's the end of your life. And that's how we see your life. Your life is in the context of a year. So when spring comes, after the death and destruction of the winter, it's not just birth, it's rebirth. It's what we call Yetzias Mitzrayim. And in fact, Yetzias Mitzrayim was a resurrection. It was Yetzias Mitzrayim. We were dead in Egypt and we had to come back to life. Says in the Tziv, the Simonim, the Osos, that Hashem gave Moshe to show the Jewish people. His hand was tsaras. Tsaras is like death. It says a Mitzorah is someone who's dead. He put his hand in and came out and it came back to life. He took a dead piece of wood, threw it down, it turned into a snake, something alive. So the idea was that Klal Yisrael has to come back to life. That's Geula. Geula and Yetzias Mitzrayim are the same idea. Umatzmiach Yeshuos. Yeah? We say in the bracha of Yetzias Mitzrayim. When the Yeshua comes, it's going to be a resurrection. And therefore, in Tfilas Geshem, which we say on Sukkot, when we're praying for rain, so we say, L'chaim v'lo l'maves. Amen. Yeah. We say the same thing in Tfilas Tal that we say on Pesach. L'chaim v'lo l'maves. But if you look at the, I think it's the Mata Ephraim, parish on the Machzor. By Sukkot, it says L'chaim v'lo l'maves, exactly what it means. Without water, we will die. We don't appreciate what that means in most places, because we always have access to water in Eretz Yisrael. If it didn't rain, you were finished. Every house had a cistern. During the rainy season, it filled up, and you would use that water through the summer. And if it didn't rain come the rainy season, you were out of water. That's it. To a Yerushalmi, to waste water is still one of the most terrible things. Rabbi David Brisker, was that so? He used to take a bath Erev Shabbos, and then his wife would use the water to do sponge. water was something that was, it was a difference between life and death. I saw a guy in shul. He had some kind of stain on his jacket, and he turns on the faucet by the washing sink. The water's gushing out, and he takes a few drops like this. There was an old man there. I thought he was going to burst into tears, because he grew up knowing that water is the difference between life and death. If it ran out, you were done. I mean, the fact that today we could turn on a faucet and we have water, what a miracle. And we had a particularly rainy year this year, Baruch Hashem, another year in a row. And some people check the Kinneret, some people check the meteorological charts. I just check my bedroom because, I set up the buckets, and as it comes pouring down, I can measure the rainfall. And we had a very rainy year. I only had to replace a keyboard this time. Sometimes I have whole appliances that go out. But yeah, it's a little difficult. When they told me that the apartment came with running water, I didn't realize it was from the ceiling. But anyway, but Beseda, we had a lot of rain. Baruch Hashem. So, in fact, in Eretz Yisrael, I don't know about everywhere, but this was the coldest March on record because of global warming. Anyway, so be that as it may, the springtime comes and everything comes back to life because that's what the Yeshua is. Yetzias Mitzrayim was a Tchias HaMeisim, and when the Geula comes, it's going to be Tchias HaMeisim. I've mentioned this in the past. The Vilna Gaon, who says that when Titus stuck the sword into the paroches and the blood came out, this Russia wasn't zeicha to such an ace. It was a message for us that Taka at the Churban Beis HaMikdash, we died. And says the Gra, and the bones have just been rotting and drying until there's nothing left but dry bones. And when Moshiach comes, it's a Tchias HaMeisim. We're going to have to come back to life. And Pesach, which is the Geula, comes out in the springtime. And so when we say in Tfilas Tal, L'chaim v'lo l'maves, it says L'chaim of Tchias HaMeisim. That is the koyach this Pesach, not just of Geula. Not that I'm minimizing that. Mamash of Tchias HaMeisim. The world is crazy. There's crazy stuff going on. Or as some of my Talmidot from Brooklyn used to say, it's crazy. It's crazy what's going on. I don't know what's going on. It's crazy. Yes, it's crazy. The Ukraine is fighting against Russia. And Russia's backing up. I mean, what is this? What kind of sense does this make? Yeah. This government formed, even the majority of the government were right-wing parties, and they just got together because they hated Netanyahu, and they passed all these anti-religious laws. It's the only thing they could agree on. The only thing that brings these people together was to destroy religion in Israel and do things that will hurt the Haredim. Does this make any sense? What's going on in America and the government and the things that are happening? I was in America, and I did a shopping and Stop and Shop. Just a small shopping, which would have cost me probably $30. It was over $100. It's crazy. Things are bad. But if history has taught us one thing, it's going to get worse. Cheer up, because things could get worse. I cheered up, and sure enough, things got worse. Yeah. So, okay. So we don't just need a geula, we need a tchias hameisim. We have to bring ourselves back to life, and that is the challenge that we have to go through now, this Pesach. It's not enough just to become free. We have to wake ourselves up, as we said in the Haftarah of Parshas Parah, remove our heart of stone and give us a leiv basar, a heart of flesh, so that we can we can feel. We can feel. Simcha Wasserman said we would never have made it through this long gullus with a heart of flesh. It would have cracked so many times. I said this to Ray Bowman once because he had a lot of heart issues, and I said that's because you take everything in your heart. I remember I once told him some bad news, and the next day I heard he was in the hospital, and I said, "Oh no, it's me," So when he came out, I said, "I want to ask Machila." He goes, "Don't worry, David, I don't pay that much attention to you." I felt better, but so you need a heart of stone just to get through. But to bring the Geula, we have to change that, and that's why Rav Dessler says that it says Moshiach ben Yosef will come before Moshiach ben Dovid, because Yosef represents the heart, and Yehuda represents the mind, and the Geula is going to come with the heart. We have to come back to life. We have to care. And it's so hard today. We've been dead for so long. We have to wake ourselves up. Tfilas Tal, right? The Chazal say when everyone died at Matan Torah, Hashem brought the Tal of Tchias HaMeisim and brought them back to life. That's the power. And so, Mitzvah Hashem, this will be not just a Geula, but a Tchias HaMeisim for us and for Klal Yisrael. Okay, now we come to the question and answer portion of our program. And by the way, for those of you who I haven't gotten to all of the questions, we're actually reaching the bottom of the list. So if you still want to submit questions, you have that opportunity. So we're gonna run out of all these questions, and I'll have to ask you questions. So first is the Shabbos. After Lag BaOmer, which I believe is May 20th and 21st, I'm going to be in St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis, whichever way you like to say it. Yeah. The first time I was in St. Louis was 1968. My family went cross country, and we went to see the giant arch, and it was very exciting. Mississippi River, first time I was ever in St. Louis. So I'm going to be there for a Shabbos. So if anyone wants to try to put together an event, we will, in Yetzias Hashem, be doing another Rabbi Orlofsky show live, and I will give the details, Belina, during the next episode. So please, keep watching, and if you can come and participate, you can ask everyone who was there at the last one. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so this is a timely question. Is there a connection between Ha Lachma Anya and Chad Gadya, since they are the only things in the Hagadah that are in Aramaic? Every now and then, I feel like I'm planting questions in the audience. So I heard this story many years ago, that Rosh Yeshiva used to come and give a shir in Gateshead, and there was one big Talmid Chacham who, whatever the person was saying, he would ask a bomb kasha and slug him up. And the person would always be like, well, I don't know, I have to go see that Taisus that I remember it. I was like, Anyway, this Rosh Yeshiva was coming to give a shir. And he's going through the whole thing. And at one point, the person says, no, Ma'ama Taisus ben Nedarim. So he says, Ezu Tosfos I'm mitkaven. Which Tosfos do you mean? He goes, you test with that. He goes, Divir Maskell so-and-so? Yeah. For about 5 minutes. And he gives a whole beautiful answer that's absolutely brilliant. It's the only time this fellow ever did it. At the end, he came up to him and says, you can learn it. This guy knows how to learn. Now his Talmidim doing better. So I came up and said, Rebbe, my eye, what went on? So he shows him the notes. And the next thing was, and if you ask me from the Tosfos and the Darim, and he had the whole mahalach. The rest was just theatrics. But so every now and then you get a question, which is just being lobbed right over. Says the Chasam Sofer, obviously these things were added in later. They were added in later. Ha Lachma Anya and Chad Gadya. Why? Because, as you pointed out, they're in Aramaic. So Ha Lachma Anya is a very strange thing. After you make Kiddush, you say, anyone who's hungry, come in to eat. Why wouldn't you do that beforehand? Like before you made Kiddush, invite in the guests. And furthermore, it says, anyone who needs to make Pesach, come in. You know you can't do that with a Korban Pesach. You have to join it before the Zman Shchita, before the Korban Pesach is shechted. You can't just do it whenever you want. So says Chassam Sofer, that is our introduction now to the Seder. This is the bread of affliction that our forefathers ate in the land of Egypt. This is not the matzah of Geula that represents how quickly the Geula comes. This is the bread of suffering that we ate in Egypt. Anyone who wants can come in now. And anyone who wants can come and join us right now for Pesach. You know why? Because we don't have a Korban Pesach. When you used to give a Seder, it had to be in Yerushalayim. It had to be on the ground floor. And in the middle of the table, there was a big Korban Pesach. And that was the highlight of it. So what the Chassam Sofer is saying is, Ha Lachma Anya is saying, this is a virtual Seder. This is not the real Seder. If it's a real Seder, it wouldn't be Lechem Anya, the Yetzias Mitzrayim. It would be the matzah of Geula that we're eating with the Korban Pesach. And so we're going through the steps. And that's why it ends. Now we're here. Next year we'll be in Eretz Yisrael. Now we're slaves. Next year we'll be free. It's a introduction to the Seder. And he says, when you come to the end, Chad Gadya, he says, people say it wrong. You should say it like a kinna. Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya. The Zav Abba betrays Zuzeh, Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya. And he says, the whole Chad Gadya is remembering the Korban Pesach. That's the Gedi. Also Shunra. Shunra, the Gemara says, is when the time of the cat is Chatzos. Comes Chatzos and bites the Korban Pesach because you can't eat it past Chatzos. And then you come into the Beis HaMikdash and they make the fire which went up like a stick. And then they give the Korban Chagiga that you're going to bring on Yontif to drink from the Kiora, and then you shecht it, and then you bring it. And all of Chad Gadya is just remembering what the Korban Pesach was. And Mitzvah Hashem, it's not too late that maybe this year we'll have a real Korban Pesach. Yeah? All right. Anonymous asks, an egg is parve, a chicken is fleishig. At what point does the change occur? Baruch Hashem, something else I know. I have smicha, I am a rabbi. I'm an actual rabbi. I'm not really a rabbi, but I play one on television. No, I am an actual rabbi, but I have a smicha that's known as Yora Yora. Yora Yora means that you study Yoredeya. That's really all that I know. Your idea is you're supposed to show that you can learn and then you go and expand it out, or you just hold on to your smicha and do other stuff like I do. Yeah? So whenever anybody asks me a shaila, like someone brought me their tefillin and say, is this a psul? I said, I don't know. Drop it in a pot of chicken soup and I'll tell you what to do with it. I'm somewhere of a specialist. I only know Hilchas Kashrus, more or less. There was a big Talmid Chacham called me up once. They asked me a shaila in Taruvas, and I said, why are you asking me? This guy was a big Talmid Chacham than I was. He says, I never learned Issav Heter. And you have a Maila. You know what you know and you know what you don't know, and you don't mix the two up. Yeah. So I told him what I thought the answer was, but I called another person just to double check, and he said the same thing that I did. I was pretty good. What I know, I know. Yeah. Or as I often say, I don't do much, but what I do exceptionally well. So, take an egg. Yeah. This egg will always remain parve. You know why? Because it's not fertilized. And that's why if you find a blood spot, we can be makel today because we know that it's not really blood spot from a fertilized egg. Yeah. And that's why some poskim hold you could just remove the blood spot. That's how could you buy anything from a bakery? You think they sit there and check every egg? You buy some commercial product. You think they're sitting there, tracking each egg and checking it, because relying on the fact that the eggs are not fertilized. If it's a fertilized egg, you're okay. Unless you find a blood spot in it or a slightly formed embryo of a chicken. That is called a nevela. You cannot eat that egg. That egg is usher from the Torah. It's not fleishig, it's treif. It's a treif egg. Yeah. So now there are certain people who eat fertilized eggs because they maintain that it's healthier. Okay. You have to check that midiraisa and make sure that there's nothing growing in there. Yeah. Okay. So when does this egg, at this point, if it's unfertilized, it's parve. If it's fertilized and there's nothing growing in there, then it's parve. If it's fertilized and there's something growing inside, then it's usher. If you wait until that egg gives birth to a little chicken, then it becomes fleishig. Having said that, the Gemara discusses the formation of eggs. You could check the chicken and find semi-formed eggs. If it has not developed a peel around it yet, that's a fleishig egg. And you take it out of the chicken, and that has a din of fleishigs. There is a fleishig egg. So I hope you found this as exciting as I did, because I think I gave an excellent presentation on this exceptional situation. Okay. Yehuda Winzelberg, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, asks, why do Chazal say in Sanhedrin 97a that Moshiach will only come with Hesech HaDa'as? Hesech HaDa'as means when you're not paying attention. When we give up waiting for him, when we daven every day in Shemoneh Esrei that we await the Yeshua, and in Ani Maamin it says that we wait for Moshiach to come every day. Thank you for doing this show. It is the highlight in our family's life. Thank you so much. But I think you need to do something else. Because this is only an hour in the week, so you're going to have to find something else. But I can't tell you. You see, this goes back to the very first question when people say, how do you feel a connection? When a person says something like this to me, do you understand what that means to me? That I'm sitting here recording this and it's the highlight of their family's life, Anyway, let's answer the question. It's a mistranslation of Hesech HaDa'as. Hesech HaDa'as does not mean that I'm not waiting. Hesech HaDa'as means that I wasn't paying attention. Okay, this is a deep cut. There was a book written called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. A very, very weird book. A very weird book. And then there was a sequel, and then there was another sequel. And at that point, it was called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy Trilogy. When the fourth one came in, they called it the inappropriately named Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy Trilogy, because now there were 4 books. When the fifth one came out, it said the fifth in the increasingly inappropriately named Hitchhiker to the Galaxy. Anyway, at one point, the alien who befriended this Earthling, and after Earth got destroyed, so he says, wait, I think I see something. And he keeps moving, He says, what is it? He goes, yeah, there's definitely something there. He goes, how do you know? He says, yeah, I can see it. They're using an SEP field. Somebody else's problem. He says, if you put up an SEP field, he says, it could be a mountain. You'll walk around it, you'll climb over it, and you'll never see it because it's somebody else's problem. So the only way you can see it is if you don't look for it. Because as long as you're looking for it, you'll never see it because it's somebody else's problem. But you could catch a glimpse of it out of the corner of your eye. Hesech HaDa'as means not that I'm thinking that I'm not thinking. It's I wasn't paying attention. That's something that comes very easily to some people. Yeah. That's not important. But anyway, so you have to wait for Mashiach. And you have to expect Mashiach. What does it mean by Hesech HaDa'as? Hesech HaDa'as are the people who make all the calculations. Like one year, I remember that someone brought how many kuf and Sadi there were in the Torah, which spells Kates, and then a number of letters came out to 5,700 and something. This year Mashiach is going to come because it's Kates in the Torah. Yeah. There are other examples of this throughout history where people say, I know Mashiach is going to come now. The Chofetz Chaim used to keep a suitcase packed, ready for when Mashiach came. And he obviously was waiting for Mashiach. But there was this tumult going around. People made calculations. Mashiach's going to come this year. And the Chofetz Chaim said, I guarantee you he's not going to come this year. Why? Because when you psych yourself up for he's going to come now, he's not going to come. It's going to be Hesech HaDa'as when you don't expect it. I remember someone made a surprise party for one of my kids. It was like 2 months after their birthday. So they said, it's not my birthday. He goes, I know, that's why it's a surprise. If I did it on your birthday, it wouldn't be a surprise. When I do it not on your birthday, that's a surprise, right? It's something that's completely unexpected. Yeah, Hesech HaDa'as means that I wasn't looking. This is a personal observation, but I've spent years waiting to see when the street lights come on. At some point they come on, but I was never zeicha to see them come on. And I remember it was one day, I happened to be, somewhere near the window, and I was looking out the window, and I suddenly saw them come on. I didn't expect them. Those of you who use Shabbos clocks, the Shabbos clock never turns on the time that you set it. And if you're waiting, okay, it's 2:02 and 10 seconds, and that ding. Where's the Shabbos clock? And this is not that precision piece of machinery that's going to have it turn on at the nanosecond. This is not a moon launch. You're not paying attention. Suddenly it's on. So it means that don't make all of your calculations. Eskaya asks, is it true Rabbi Orlofsky doesn't know his wife's favorite color? What is the best gift that you ever got your wife? I told this story in the Shidduch series that I said, how long do you have to date before you get married? So this girl said, you have to know everything about the person beforehand. Like, how could you get married? You don't know, your spouse's favorite color. So I'd been married for decades by this point, and I came home and I said to my wife, what's your favorite color? She goes, I don't know. I don't know if I have one. So I don't know what her favorite color is. Yeah. What's the best gift you ever got your wife? It's a very hard question. That's a question for a man, not for a woman. John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, who's much more of an expert on marriage than I am. He's been married 4 times. I've only been married once. And he says that one of the differences between men and women is that men like a big act of kindness, thoughtfulness, a big thing. They like that. And that means a lot, and they'll think about it a lot. Women like a lot of little things. And so that's why husbands are always surprised. Like, they spend a lot of time thinking of something for their wife, and, it doesn't have that lasting impact, right? A wife says to her husband, do you love me? He says, I told you already. I've told you a whole bunch of... You know what? If anything changes, I'll let you know. That doesn't work. She wants to hear it over and over and over again. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. Men don't. It's not the same thing. Yeah. So I've gotten my wife gifts over the years that, I think she really enjoyed, more meaningful. But I don't think there was ever any one gift. You try to think, what would a person like? For example, there's a mitzvah to buy your wife jewelry on Yontif, right? So there's 3 of those. 4 if you count Shemoneh Esrei. How much jewelry are you going to get? So if you're going to buy like the Hope Diamond, nothing is going to come close to that. So you keep buying different pieces of jewelry. They're nice ones. Once I got my wife this sort of like gold brooch. She enjoyed it with a pearl in the middle. She enjoyed it very much. And then she forgot to remove it before I went to the dry cleaners, and we never saw it again. And I was looking around to buy her another brooch, but she didn't want another brooch. I asked her about it, but she didn't want to broach the subject. So that's how that works. And since I just mentioned that, then I guess I'll just have to answer this one last question. Anonymous asks, if the only reason why we laugh is because of the unexpected, then why do we sometimes laugh at our own jokes? In my case, because they're unexpected. What do you think? I planned this out? I told you. I walk into the room and I sometimes say to Mikhail, what should I talk about? I'm walking out the door. I say to my wife, what should I talk about? Yeah. When I come up with a joke, I didn't think of it beforehand. I was just chazering over the Purim episode, which was a lot of fun, you know. I just remember I used this word Jewess, you know, which is for a female word. And I said, no one knew that Esther was Jewish. They said, funny, you don't look Jewish. Now, I still think that's one of the funniest lines I've ever said in my entire life. I don't know if anybody else does, but I definitely did. And, you know, obviously I threw it up on the spot. That's one thing. The other thing is that that even though you know the joke, but the reaction is unexpected. In other words, when you see everybody laughing at it that way, so you become part of the audience who are enjoying it. You know, and you know what they say, he who laughs last didn't get the joke. Okay, so that's it for this week. If you want to find out more about the show, please go to my website, Orlofsky.com. You can send an email. You can leave a comment on the episode. You can sponsor an episode. You can ask a question. You can still sign up for the Tefillah series, which Yetzias Mitzrayim after Pesach when I get started. We have to give you all those details. You will be contacted. We have your information. You will be contacted. And if you want to do some kind of an event in America around Lag BaOmer time, I'm going to be there. And that's about it for this episode. I am David Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.